because everyone was excited to see Han, Luke, and Leia back together. And then we didn't get to see that. Hey guys, Final Death Star. I've got an article here from Cinemablend, and it's the first one I've read that actually is saying that the Rise of Skywalker may not have as big of an opening as The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi. So far, all I've seen is the inflation of these pre-ticket sales from the first day, even though people were reporting that first rows of theaters are sold out. The first few rows are sold out, but you can get tickets in the wings of the middle section, which would normally be like better seats to see a movie. I don't know people that rush to buy tickets in the first row and sell out the first row when you have all these other tickets in more prime seating available. So it seems a little sketchy. And then we did we broke a story on our Fourth Wave live stream on author Stephen Walton's channel. We do it every Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And we talked about how Atom Films, which was reporting all these huge record-breaking sales, is actually owned, or not owned, but they're financially backed by Disney and Fox Entertainment, which is now also a subsidiary of Disney because Disney bought them. So there's some interesting things going on here with pre-ticket sales and the reporting of them and who's honest and who's being truthful, who's being backed by a company who owns the movie that they're trying to promote. So this article came out as like I couldn't believe what I was reading. I was like, what? An actual publication saying that it might not do as well as the first two movies? Because I know we in the Fandom Menace have been saying this is quite possibly something to take a look at. So this says Star Wars: A Rise of Skywalker is tracking for a huge opening, but lowest of new trilogy. Now there is that question mark there, so they're not totally bought into this, but how much money will Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker make in its opening weekend? And one early box office forecast is in, and it's huge, but huge is relative when it comes to Star Wars. The 2019 movie is projected to potentially have a lower opening weekend box office than Star Wars: Force Awakens and Star Wars: Last Jedi. But considering Episode 9 pre-sales just broke some records, it may be worth raising an eyebrow at any lower estimates. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker isn't opening for another 2 months, but the box office prognosticators are already hard at work crunching opening weekend numbers. And this is their estimate here. Opening weekend range, 185 to 225 million. Opening weekend estimate, 200 million for the 3-day opening, from December 20th to the 22nd, with a domestic total range 550 to 750 million. That is under $1 billion. Sometimes Box Office Pro is close, sometimes not. An Episode 9 opening weekend in that range would be a drop from The Force Awakens, which set a record at the time with 248 million opening weekend in 2015. Because everyone was excited to see Han, Luke, and Leia back together. And then we didn't get to see that. So I think that caused a huge drop-off in the second movie. That movie went on to become the current leader as the highest-grossing movie of all time at the domestic box office, with Endgame still having the overall worldwide title. Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, had an opening weekend of 220 million in 2017. So if The Rise of Skywalker opens on the higher end of Box Office Pro's forecast, it could top The Last Jedi. The site is currently going with 200 million for Rise of Skywalker's opening, but leaving the door open. I'd open that door a lot wider if it were me. Talking about the writer of this article. I wouldn't. I do think Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is going to pass The Last Jedi at the box office, and I think it'll start with its opening weekend. Yes, there is anger out there after The Last Jedi, and some fans are in no rush to watch The Rise of Skywalker in the theater. It also is apple to oranges compared to pre-sales for Avengers movies to Star Wars movies, since the early ticket rush from hardcore Star Wars fans may not be as emblematic of a larger mainstream rush to see the final Star Wars film over the opening weekend. See, now at least they are acknowledging a backlash against Last Jedi, and that fans are not rushing out to see this movie in the theater at all, or at least its opening weekend. So they at least acknowledge that. They're aware of it now. I still think The Force Awakens opened to $247 million and The Last Jedi opened to $220 million. That The Rise of Skywalker will open somewhere in between that. As Box Office Pro even noted, Star Wars trilogies have established a pattern of the first movie making the most money, the second movie declining significantly, and the third rebounding from the second best performance. That may happen as well, but most movies also don't have the kind of backlash that The Last Jedi has. So you got to put that into the equation. People are really upset, not only with the movie, but how Lucasfilm treated the fans. That was really what threw the salt on the wound, so to speak. Here are the total domestic and international grosses for the previous two trilogy movies as per Box Office Mojo. So you see here, Star Wars The Force Awakens had a domestic of right under $1 billion. The foreign was a little over $1 billion, and worldwide was a little slightly over $2 billion. So that's a really strong movie. And then we've got The Last Jedi, which domestic was just over $500 million. And then you've got a foreign of significantly under. It didn't really even come close to $1 billion, and then the worldwide was just over $1 billion. So there was a pretty good drop off from the worldwide total of Force Awakens to The Last Jedi, and I think that also has a lot to do with the word of mouth. Well, once that word of mouth got out that this movie was killing Star Wars and crushing everything you loved about it, that had a significant part to play on people not seeing it a second time, and maybe like the normies not really so psyched to see it when the fans are saying like this movie's terrible. And then you've got all the fans that would see the movie 2, 3, 4 times in the theater. They're not going back because they didn't like it. So that's why that number is significantly lower there, in my opinion. Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker should pass $1 billion easily, and I do agree with the total projection of $550 to $750 million, considering how massive that gap is. I'd estimate on the higher side, higher than $620 million of The Last Jedi, but almost certainly lower than the $900 million. Yeah, it's going to make certainly lower. I'm totally sold into that as well. I'm going to go on the lower side, I think, of this, since it's the single biggest domestic total in history. This all hinges on word of mouth too, how well this movie performs its first opening weekend to not just critics, because I don't think the trust in movies has kind of moved from what critics feel and how they're reporting it to more of the fan base and how the people that are going, the everyday people, how they're reporting it and what their ratings are. I mean, if you look at Rotten Tomatoes recently, we've seen such a huge disparity between what critics view as a good movie and what the fans and what the actual audience members are viewing as a good movie. So Rotten Tomatoes, I think, will have a part to play in how this movie does, but I think it's going to be the audience score, not the critics' score. Well, you guys can check out more of this article. I'll link it down below there. But I thought it was interesting that we've got Cinemablend actually reporting that this movie might not do as well as the previous two, even though we've seen Atom Films and other publications saying this is a record-breaking opening weekend. Ticket sales are through the roof. But then they lack to mention that for the first 40 minutes it did well, and then after that there was a drop-off. So, alright guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below, and thank you for watching the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to grow this channel, and we've got a live stream we do on author Stephen Walton's YouTube channel every Friday at 4. We're talking about maybe even picking up a Monday spot too to do a second show. So we'd possibly have 2 shows a week. So check that out every Friday at 4 p.m. on author Stephen Walton's channel. It's called The Fourth Wave. We've got some great guys. We break down Star Wars and just the culture in general right now. So check that out. Subscribe over there. Like this video and share it around. Until next time, lock the doors and hope they don't have blasters.